Chapter 7 of Renegade. Guess the cops are still interested in you. Lying on a creeper under a Chevy Silverado pickup with four-wheel drive, Pipe caught the vehicle's edge and slid out into the open garage. Monty had put a hurricane fan in the corner to help circulate the air, now that spring was starting to return to the city. In a few more weeks, working conditions in the garage would escalate north of miserable. Monty stood between the Silverado and a Toyota Camry that was in for a brake job. The pickup needed a new transmission because the young driver couldn't stay away from off-roading with his buddies, and Daddy's wallet hadn't gone flat. Seeing how the truck and the father were being treated irritated Pike, so he was working on the other vehicles in between to slow down the return time. The young driver was calling daily. Pike didn't bother looking across the street to the small diner he and Monty sometimes ordered takeout from. Usually they ate what Monty's wife fixed for them for lunch, but she knew they both enjoyed the diner's meatloaf Mondays. The diner's meatloaf Mondays. The two-man detail assigned to watch over Pike had been there since he'd gotten back from his trip to Tulsa. They stuck out like sore thumbs, so much for whatever pull the federal prosecutor thought that he had in the area. Pike hadn't bothered calling Dundee to let him know that whatever request had gone through the channels was being ignored. The crack house was still out of business, and repairs hadn't even started on the place, so everything was fine. Pike wiped his hands on a grease rag. Guess they are. Must be a slow day for crime fighters. Monty handed Pike a cold beer from the chest that they kept in the office. It was after 3, and they would knock off in a couple of hours. Monty had to coach a Little League baseball game. Pike figured he would hang out at the garage and tinker for a while on Mrs. Garcia's car, because he didn't have anything else to do, and he was restless. If he went back to the apartment, he'd be crawling the walls. I think they don't like you because they think that you're doing what they can't. Pike took a long drink but didn't say anything. Monty hunkered down, sliding against the Toyota till he was in a sitting position. He rested his elbows on his drawn-up knees and dangled his beer can from his grease-stained fingers. He appeared hesitant, and that wasn't like Monty. More attentive now because Pike liked the guy and what he brought to his family and to the community. Pike watched Monty struggle with his thoughts for a moment. Monty didn't usually do that. Usually he was a straight-ahead kind of a thinker. Pike had watched Monty struggle more over figuring out his hitting lineup before a game than anything else. He kept his life on the straight and narrow. The garage owner had some bad stuff locked away in his closet from his younger years, but Pike didn't meet many people with clean hands. Something on your mind? Monty knuckled sweat from his eyebrow and grimaced. Yeah, shouldn't be, but there is. What? Taking a deep breath, Monty looked at Pike. Those cops are talking like you lit up that crack house a few nights ago. Yeah? It's not my business, I know that. Pike knew that too, but he also knew that Monty was about to make it his business. I don't want to ask, Pike, but I got to. Pike took another sip of beer, relished the coolness of it against the dry heat and the taste of burnt oil and hydraulic fluid that pervaded the garage, and thought about how he was going to answer. He respected Monty too much to lie. Do you really want to know? Yeah, I think I need to. It's my family, Pike, and my garage. If those things are in the line of fire from some gangbangers, I need to know. Yeah, I burned it down. Figured you did when the cops come nosing around here, but I wanted to be sure. Now you're sure. Why? It needed burning. People around here are getting hurt. Nobody seemed to be able to do anything to stop them, so I stopped them. You can't just do that. It's easier than you think. You could have been killed. I wasn't. Pike took another sip and felt like the ground was suddenly treacherous underfoot. There were two ways this conversation might go, and he wasn't holding out for a fairy tale ending. I couldn't do what you did, Pike. Pike didn't say anything. I knew about the crack house. Hurt showed in Monty's eyes. I just kept trying to ignore it, like everybody else around here. But I couldn't quite quit thinking about it. My kids are young right now, but I know that sooner or later they're going to be old enough to be prey for those dealers. Thinking like that makes me sick. Pike nodded. I've even called in to the police about the crack house. Twice. Reported what I was seeing. The police came around, but they never caught anybody doing anything. Exercise in futility. But I kept thinking about my kids and wondering what was going to happen. And then I found out that the place had burned up. I felt pretty good about it. Figured it was rival action between gangs. But it was all the same to me because it was out of business. Monty paused. Then the police came around, accusing you of setting that fire and running those guys out of the building. I didn't mean to bring any of this down on you, brother. Mike Pike spoke softly and felt a big knot in his chest. I know, but I'm worried about it. You want me to pull up stakes, Bonnie? Pike knew that he had to ask the question, but he dreaded the answer. This garage and that apartment weren't home. He had never had any place that he truly called home, but the idea of leaving everything was unsettling. Is that what you're working up to? Because if it is, just say the word and I won't think about badly of you for it. Surprise twisted Monty's big face. No, man, that's not what I'm getting at here. It's just that if the police suspect you burned that crack house down, them drug dealers are gonna get around to figuring things out too. You know? Yeah. I don't want you to leave, Pike. I talked it over with my wife, told her what the cops suspected and what I thought was going on. I asked her what she thought about everything too. She wants the kids safe. She wants you safe. That's understandable. Mentally, Pike started packing his tools, figuring out how much of them he could take today and how much would have to wait till he brought his truck down, and how much he'd have to just leave. The witness protection guys would be happy. They could tuck him in some other out of the way place. Nope, that's not it either. She wants you to stay as much as I do. The garage is more profitable. I'm happier working. She don't have to worry about me getting hurt while I'm here on my own. Truth to tell, if you could help me figure out how to get Rahid out of his batting slump, life couldn't be better. But I want to make some changes around here. Pike was lost. The conversation hadn't gone at all the way he thought it was going to go. Changes? Yeah, I'm going to plow some of those profits we've been making into putting up a security system, maybe a closed circuit TV system. Thought maybe I'd up the security at my house too, in case somebody wants to try something there. I'm sorry, Monty. I felt bad at having forced his friend into bunker mentality. That was the problem with being close to anybody else outside of his own skin. They paid a price too. He hadn't even thought about that when he'd gone into that crack house. Don't don't be, brother. I've been wanting to upgrade the security around my house anyway, Monty grinned. With all the extra work you pull in, I bought a big screen TV, some new game consoles for the kids, and I gave a few $100s for a couple of really sweet big barrel bats for the team. I got stuff I want to protect anyway. I just wanted you to know that I'd be asking for help with the installs, if that's okay. Pike didn't really know how to feel. On the one hand, he was glad he wasn't moving. On the other, Monty being this open with him had been made him nervous and uncomfortable. It reminded Pike of all the times in foster homes when other kids had wanted to be his friends. He'd learned the hard way that those kids belonged to the foster parents, and there was a big difference between biological kid and foster kid. At the end of his time there, they'd pack Pike's stuff in a little backpack and send him back into the system. That had been when he was young enough to still be looking for a family. By the time he was 10, he'd quit looking and had known he was just a meal ticket for foster parents to occasionally punch, till he got to be too uncontrollable. Then he'd stayed at the orphanage. At least that way, he had consistency in his life that he hadn't had up till then. Having Monty accept him in spite of the potential trouble he was bringing down on them was troublesome. Pike felt like he owed the man something, and he didn't like owing anybody anything. Yeah, I'll help. Monty smiled. I hope you're willing to work for beer and tamales, because I can't pay you for your time. Then it's a good thing your wife makes good tamales. Don't forget the fried ice cream. She makes good fried ice cream, too. Pike saluted Monty with the beer can. She does. Monty nodded towards the Silverado. You got that tranny ready to go? Yeah. Want a hand with it? Sure. Pike lobbed the empty beer can into a nearby trash bin, lay back on the creeper, and slid under the truck. Hey, looks like it's school time. Looking up from under Miss Garcia's hood, Pike peered towards the front of the garage and saw that Hector walking towards him and Monty. The boy had a troubled expression on his face. That's that's true unhappiness if I ever saw it. Monty wrapped more black electrician's tape on the piece of wiring they'd spliced into Mrs. Garcia's vehicle. Pike grimaced. It's that new math. Math. Monty shook his head and kept taping. Better you than me, man. I'm good with history and geography, but I suck at math. I can tell from the way you tote up those accounts sometimes. I got a good wife. She can cook, wrangle kids, and keep my bookkeeping straight. She's a multitasker, and that is what she is. Pike straightened up so Hector could see him. Immediately, the boy changed directions and headed for him. Hector's good at figuring problems out and getting the answers, but he doesn't show all of his work. Pike dipped out a handful of grease cleaner from a bucket on the work table at the back of the garage and cleaned his hands. Got an aptitude for it, and the teacher doesn't have time to help him. Go on, I can finish up here. Then I gotta make some calls. Get some of these packed clunkers back into their owners. Thanks. I'm probably gonna be working late tonight, so I'll make up for any lost time. Sure, go ahead. Maybe when Hector gets a little older, I can hire him to be my accountant. That'll make the missus happy. I'm going to take him over to the diner. We can get a table there and spread out. Monty nodded. Hello, Mr. Pike. With a frustrated sigh, Hector held out his thick math book. It is this thing again. My teacher's still unhappy with me. He opened the book and took out a sheaf of papers that had been marked up with enough red pencil that they looked like they were hemorrhaging. What's going on? She says I work too fast and don't show the steps again, Hector sighed. Showing all the steps is boring. The math's too easy. Sure, I get that. Mechanic work is too easy too. Remember me telling you that? Yeah. A mechanic has to be methodical in what he's doing, one step at a time. If he doesn't, he's liable to leave something out that's important and cause a bigger problem than he started with. We've been over this. I know, Hector looked forlorn. This is why you take screws out of a part and put them in a small cup so they stay together. That's right. Hector had been watching Pike work on cars for months. The kid was bright, always learning. That's what you have to do when you take a math problem apart. Keep all the bits and pieces in their proper places. Pike dropped a rag onto the work table. Let's go over to the diner, get you a Coke, and then we'll take a look at those papers.